Hello. Hmm? Hello. If you can hear me, I'd love it if you put like an emoji in the chat or just let me know if you can hear me alright. Awesome. Alright, so I'm going to give it a couple of minutes and otherwise I'll just get started with whoever's currently in here. So do feel free to put up questions into the chat if you would like to learn something specific. So I had someone request to do like script stickers with the text with a like white outline around it. So we'll definitely go over that. And yeah, feel free to ask any other questions. Let me know what you'd like to hear. And otherwise, I'll just start from scratch and we'll go over how to set up a page and then the sort of basic tools that I use most in Silhouette, and then we'll make these stickers. Okay, so Jenny, is there an echo? Is that right? I might try and switch to a different microphone to see if that helps the sound at all. So excuse me while I try and switch to a different mic. Okay, is that sound working a bit better? We'll see how that goes. Okay, I'm not quite sure if the sound is better or worse. Let me see. Sorry, Jenny. I'm new to this and still working everything out. We'll see if this is better. So, like I was saying, we're gonna just start with setting up your basic page for printing. And all right, awesome. Okay, so we're gonna set up a basic page for printing, and then I'll go through the tools that I use because there are a lot of tools in here that I pretty much never use. And then we'll make these stickers, just sort of the standard stickers that you see in most like standard quote-unquote sticker kits. But like I said, if you've got any questions, I know someone requested to be able to make these sort of script stickers where you've got text with an outline around them, a little bubble. So I'll go over that. But yeah, any questions, feel free to ask. I'm new to live streaming, but not new to Silhouette Studio. I've used this program for almost 5 years now, I think, and I run a sticker shop. So I create and design all my own stickers, print them out, and mail them out. So I just thought I often see a lot of questions in the Facebook groups about issues people are having, and it's hard when all you can do is reply in screenshots or in text. So I thought a live stream would mean that people can ask questions in real time and hopefully learn a few things. Because often I watch people making stickers, and they get there in the end, but it's a really hard way of doing it. So we're going to try and make things as easy as possible, but keeping in mind that I do sell my stickers, so I do like things to be nice and uniform. So yeah, we'll go over everything. So I think I will just get started. So the first thing I'm going to go over is just setting up the page. So I've got a couple of tabs here. So this is your page, and it will show you the cutting mat behind. So depending on where you live, you're going to have to set your page size to the size of the paper that you're going to be printing on. So I'm in Australia and we use A4 size paper. If you're in the US, you're probably going to be using letter size paper. So you can see it's shorter and a bit wider. So make sure you do have the correct size set. It will help with printing later if you have the correct size paper. And you want to set your orientation to either, it's fine, but I always use portrait. And you want to select your cutting mat. So I use portrait machines, so therefore my cutting mat is an 8 by 12 inch cutting mat. If you're using a Cameo, you'll set your Cameo cutting mat, and you can see the cutting mat is this grey mat behind, and that just shows you how to align your page when you're putting it in for cutting. So I'm going to set mine back onto my portrait. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to turn on your registration marks. So if you're using an original Cameo, they're fairly old now, they're not available for sale, but you use the Type 2 registration marks. Most people are using a Cameo, Portrait or Curio, so you'll select Type 1 registration marks. And that gives you this little black square in the top left and two sort of L shapes in the top and bottom corners. You need these so that the machine knows where on the page your stickers are, because every printer prints slightly differently. It might print slightly further down on the page or slightly further left on the page. And when you load your mat in, you don't load it in exactly the same place every time. So the registration marks tell Silhouette where your stickers are on your particular page. The next thing you want to do is in your page settings, you want to show print border. And this just gives you this, I don't know if you can see that, this grey line around the edge of your page. And that shows you where your printer can actually print to, because most printers can't print right to the edge of the page. So you want to make sure that your registration marks are within that line. You want to make sure that everything that you're wanting to print is within that grey print line. And the cut border is this red line, and that shows you where you can cut up to. So you can't cut anywhere on this outside area. So I'm just going to zoom out. I've got a couple of templates. So this red section that I'm just going to highlight here, it's a grey crossed out area. This red section, you can't put any printing material in. So you can't have any ink or any stickers or anything that has printing in this area or down in this bottom left area. It's too, it gets too close to the registration marks, and then the machine gets confused between which is sticker and which is registration mark, and then it cuts off. So you have to make sure that you don't have anything printed in this grey, like, crossed out area. The other area you have to be aware of is that obviously you can't cut outside of these red lines. That's your cut border. So anywhere that's purple, you can't cut. So you can have stuff printed there if you wanted to just have like decorations on the edge of your page, but it won't cut. So the machine will only cut in this red, within this red border, and it won't cut along the outside of the page. So it's just really important to note, because I see a lot of people putting stickers in this grey, like crisscross out area, and then they end up with their cut line. You end up with like a really... Oh, my computer's being a little bit slow today. And then what you want to do is select the printer that you're planning on using. Make sure any preferences are set correctly. So for example, I've got some presets set here that I want to print on A4 paper, and I want it to be, it's a matte paper that I'm using, and press OK. And then just click apply, and that should bring your grey border to be an accurate representation of where your printer can print. So that's setting up the page. The other thing is you can adjust your registration marks. So you can adjust the length of your registration marks, so that makes them longer or shorter. You can adjust the thickness of them, making them obviously fatter or thinner, and you can adjust where they are on the page. A lot of places recommend, and I've seen it online a lot, that it says to just use the default registration marks. That's the best option. For me personally, I use 1.4 length, so I make them a little bit smaller and I make them a little bit thinner, and my machine seems to work fine with that. I get very few errors, and I make the inset as small as I can, 1 centimeter. So I want to waste as little paper as possible, and I want to be able to use as much of this inside area for stickers as possible. If you're having trouble with your stickers printing and cutting correctly and not being wonky, revert to the default settings and have a go at it like that, and then maybe play with your machine and see which registration marks it likes. They're a little bit fussy. A lot of people find that thicker registration marks work better, but you'll just have to sort of play with your machine and your printer to see how that works. And if anyone has any specific questions around that, I'm always happy to troubleshoot that as well. But these are the settings that work the best for me. I am Australian, so today everything I'm doing will be in metric because I cannot use the imperial system. If you are using the imperial system, obviously you just convert it, or you can just approximate based on where my sort of little slidey bars are. So again, this is what we're going to be, for anyone who's just signing in now, this is what we're going to be learning to do. We're going to be doing checklists in a couple of different variations, some flags and some labels. Once you know how to do these labels, you'll be able to do basically any type of label. We're going to do some little icons, teardrop shape, and some half boxes. So once we've got the page set up like this, we're ready for starting to design our stickers. So I'm just going to open up this page here. And this is, I'm just going to go through quickly the tools that I use most frequently and pretty consistently. So I'm just going to go through them one by one now, and then as we make the stickers, you'll sort of see how each one's used. This is the most common tool I use, and it's the select tool. The shortcut for that is V. So I'm going to try and keep telling you if I'm using shortcuts, but if I forget and you see the cursor come back, I've just hit the letter V on my keyboard. I keep my left hand pretty much over the Z, X, C, and V keys, and I just hit V all the time. It's sort of become second nature now to do something, design something, and hit the V key, and that brings back this cursor, which allows us to select and move things around on the page. We sometimes use this, but the next one that I use the most often is the line tool. So this one just draws a straight line. If you're holding down Shift key, it will keep it snapped to either horizontal, vertical, or at a 45-degree angle. So that's the line tool, and the next one that I use all the time is the shape tool. This one, I don't often use the hexagon, but I use very often the square or the rectangle. I use the circle or the ellipse tool, and I use this fun rounded rectangle shape as well. And all of these shapes, if you press the shape and you hold down the Shift key, will give you a circle instead of an ellipse. So if you release the Shift key, you get an ellipse, and if you hold the Shift key down, you get a circle. And that's true of all the shapes. The Shift key just helps it snap to be equal. The next tool I use is the zoom tool. You can either just press zoom in and out, and that's fine. One of the things I use most often is I press the Z key or the Z, depends where you're from, but the last letter of the alphabet, I hit that key on the toolbar, and it actually brings up this, which is called drag over a shape to zoom. So for example, if I wanted to do some fine detail work over here, you just click and drag, and then it zooms all the way in onto that area. And I often hit this key, this button, which just brings us back to the full page, fit to window. So Z key to zoom in over the specific area you want, and then click back up on this top bar to get back to the full page. You can also just zoom in and out, but for example, if we wanted to work over here, you would have to zoom in and then scroll, which is a little bit more time consuming, especially if you know that this is the exact area you want to be in. So I'll often be pressing the Z or Z key. Z, I think is how Americans usually say it. Z seems to be more of an Australian thing. So that's the three tools from the left over here. And the zoom tool. The other one we use is center, front, and back. So that's when you've got an object selected. So again, I hit the V key, click on an object. You get this up, the center, front, or center, back. Okay, so if I have two shapes like this, and I've got the purple one in front of the green one, I can hit the send to back tool, and it sends it all the way to the back, and I can hit the send to front tool, and it brings it all the way to the front. So obviously it's fairly useful when we're making stickers, because we're often going to be working with layers where we've got a colored layer and a transparent layer. That's that tool. The other tools are all over on the right here. You would have just seen me use them. We've got our page setup tool. So we've already been through this. This is how you set up your page. You don't usually touch this afterwards. That's just sort of a setup at the beginning. Then we've got the color tool. And again, all of these tools also have little sub-menus. So if you click on your rectangle, and you can fill it in with color, or you can go across to the pattern box and you can fill it in with a pattern. And we'll go through sort of how to use those a bit more detail in a bit. The next one down is the line style. So we drew our line earlier using the line tool, but maybe we want to make it a lot thicker and we want to make it black. So all those sort of settings are in this line tool. The trace tool I will go over later. It's a very useful tool. It's kind of finicky and it's used only in specific circumstances, but the trace tool is very useful. The next one is text, so it's pretty straightforward. It's just like if you were using a text tool in like Word or Excel or something, but the actual text tool to create text is over here on the left. So you can just click and start typing. And then when you've got this selected, then you can come over here onto the right, and this is your text styles. So you can then select the type of font you want, and then you can go up to the color tool, which we've already discussed, and make it purple, and then we can make it have a black outline. So that's how roughly to do text. We also have the align tool. I use this tool all the time. It's actually called the transformation tool, but I very rarely use any of these other 3 tabs. I use the align tool. So if we want to take all these 3 shapes, and you can do that by clicking on anywhere blank on the screen and dragging, and then hit the center tool, they become centered vertically, and that's, you can see it in this little sort of picture graph here. You can align them to the left or align them to the right. You can also align them to center. So now we've got a fully centered shape. The other tool I use a lot is the spacing tool. So if I've got these 3 shapes and I want to space them out equally, I just hit the space vertical tool, and you can see, better example would be if they were further away, and then you hit the space vertical tool and it spaces them out vertically. And the horizontal tool will do the same. It will space them out equally across the page. So I use that a lot for stickers because I like having things line up and I like having things sort of nicely organized on my page, especially when they're stickers for sale. So that's that tool. And the last tool that I use all the time, pretty much for every single sticker, is the offset tool. And that's here. It's a little sort of star within a star, and we've got an offset which goes around the outside. It doesn't actually say, but it's an outside offset. And then we also have an internal offset, which is on the right. And then we have settings for all of those. So they're the locations of the tools. So I will be discussing sort of each tool as we go through and make each of the stickers, but just thought I'd give a quick overview. Pretty much the tools from here down pop up. There's like rhinestones, there's sketching, there's a whole bunch of other things. I pretty much never use those for stickers. They're really for like other projects. And there are a few other tools over here. The knife, the eraser, draw a note. Never used it before in my life. A lot of people will use the eraser and the knife tool. I don't like either of them very much. I find that you can not use them and you end up with a better result. Okay, so they're the basic tools. You'll also notice there are other tools up here. You've got your save, print, select all. So a bunch of other tools used to move around your page. You also have a settings panel. A lot of people have trouble finding it. It's a little cog down on the right hand side here. The setting panel, for example, you can change your unit of measurement if you would like. I always have my print resolution set to 600 dpi. It seems to work really well. You could probably go down to 300 dpi. Wouldn't be bad either. I don't really touch my settings much. I have them set all the time, but I will just go through them quickly to make sure, because, so this is all same. Okay, so this is the one that I find quite useful. So after creating a shape, continue drawing shapes is what I have mine set to, because I like to be able to just draw multiple squares over and over or multiple circles without it selecting the original shape I drew. After using the zoom tool though, I go back to select. So I zoom in and it brings back my selecting cursor right away. When drag, I select the shapes touching the drag box rather than shapes enclosed, because I want to be able to just select the very edge of the shape and have it select. So anyway, you can change your settings however you like to use your graphics program. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to this page. Again, if anyone's late coming to watching or wasn't here for the intro or whatever, I'm going to make these basic shapes. We're going to do checklists in like a full box checklist and a thin checklist. We're going to do half boxes with rounded edges. We're going to do labels, flags, scripts with a little offset around them, another type of label if we want, icons, and then a teardrop. But again, if anyone has any particular questions, the chat is open for people to comment in. So if you want to learn something in particular, feel free and we'll just ask in the chat and I can go over that. The best thing about being live is that you guys can ask questions in real time, and so you don't have to wait. Started. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So again, I hit the Z key and then I just click and drag. Because this is about the size I like to work with my page. I like being able to see the cut lines really clearly, and I like being able to see the shapes and everything that I'm using. So the first thing I want to go over is the difference between a picture and a vector, or a raster image and a vector. So I've just got a document here. This is a file, stuff for live stream. So if you bring this heart-shaped image onto the page, this is a PNG image, which means it's a raster image. It's based on pixels. So I can make it really big, but it will probably get kind of fuzzy around the edges. And I can make it really small, and that's fine. But if I go up to the fill panel and try and fill it in with color, it fills in the whole square, because actually there are pixels all the way through this image, and the computer knows that some of those pixels are transparent, and so we only can see the heart, but it just knows them as pixels. So Silhouette Studio, when you go to fill it in, just fills in the whole square as one color, and that's not really what we want. The other thing is, because all these pixels, it treats the pixels all the same. So when you go to cut this, if we go to send, which is where you'll do all your cutting from, you'll notice that if I click on this star shape, this heart shape, and I click cut edge, it's only going to cut the square. It doesn't know where in this heart shape you actually want to cut, because it doesn't know the difference between a black pixel and a really dark gray pixel and a kind of light gray pixel and a white pixel and a transparent pixel. It has no idea where to cut. So you're just going to get a square sticker, which is fine if that's what you want. But what we're going to do is make sure that all of our stickers have cut lines. So vector image is made up of lines rather than pixels. So if you have a vector image, then you don't have to trace and you don't have to give it cut lines. It already knows where to cut. So whenever, the easiest way to do a sticker sheet, to make a sticker sheet, is to always have your graphic separate to your cut line. So if we look at this example, because it's the most simple example I have, we've got a background and it's blue, and we have a cut line and that's red. So if you make all of your cut lines red, then when you're going to cut your sticker sheet, you can go up to the send tool. Oops. The undo key, very useful. Control Z or Control Z on your keyboard for PC users. I use it all the time. I undo everything. It's very useful. So when we come up to send our stickers, you're going to hit the line button, and this means that you can cut just by specific colors. So all we want to do is cut by red, so you turn all your other lines off, and it keeps it really simple. It means that no other shapes will cut, just those red lines. So you can see that the red line on this shape is going to cut, but it's not going to cut the blue that's our background. So when we put them on top of each other, we're going to end up with a red cut line on a blue shape. which means our printer is going to print out the blue. It's not going to print the red, but the machine is going to know to cut on that red line. So every shape we do, every sticker we do has a red line that tells the machine where to cut. Without the red line, we're not going to get the stickers we want. Okay. So I'm going to just zoom in, hitting the Z key and drawing out where I want to zoom to. Okay, so I think the first shape we're just going to do is a basic label. So we're going to do these 3 labels here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make our cut line. We're going to start with the cut line. So what you want to do is just draw a rectangle, any size, it doesn't matter. E key on your keyboard. And I like to click and drag to select shapes. I find it easier than trying to click specifically on the edge. If you just click and drag near it, you can select it really easily. We're going to go up into our transform panel, and this second button along is the scale panel. So this is where you can specify the dimensions of the shape that you have selected. So in this particular instance, we want to make it for an Erin Condren planner. It doesn't really matter what planner you're using, but you would have measurements that you want to build to. So we're going to make it 3.8 centimeters wide and 1 centimeter tall, and then we're going to hit apply. And now this is our label size, and we know that the cut line is the exact size that we want it. So that's where we start from. The next thing we want to do is we want to give it color, but we want the color to bleed outside of those red lines so that we can, if the silhouette machine cuts a little bit off or a little bit wonky, it's not going to matter around the edges. Offset, my standard is 0.08 centimeters, bigger than the sticker we want, and the inside line, which is the exact size of the sticker we want. We have this outside line. I'll just show you that they're still separated. You can undo that. We want to fill it in with color, and we don't want it to cut, so we want to take away the red line. So what I'm going to do is come up to my color palette, select the color to fill it in with. Let's make a purple sticker. And we're going to go to the line panel, and we're going to make the line color transparent. So just click on this gray hatched out area. So now we've got a outside area which doesn't have a line, so it won't cut, and we've got the red line which will cut. So you could just leave it as this. This is a perfectly good sticker. You'll end up with a little rectangle, like a little strip of washi. If you wanted to select, if you wanted to give it a little white inset like this, like a little label sticker would have, one of my favorite functions of Silhouette Studio, I guess, that I don't see a lot of people using, is that instead of trying to select this little red line, which is kind of tricky to select, what I like to do is select both, press the shift key, and then just click in the middle, and it will unselect the color and leave you with just the outside selected. So I do this all the time to select the lines that are really thin. You just drag over everything, hold the shift key, click on the color, and that means you're left with just the line, and it's really easy to click and drag once you've already got it selected. So in this case, I'm going to select all, shift in the middle, and then click. So now I've just got the line selected. And then we're going to go back to our offset panel, and instead of doing an outside offset, we're going to do an internal offset. So maybe I'll make it 0.15. You can always just have a look and see what it looks like. That looks about good to me. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to make it have a transparent outside because we don't want it to cut. We just want it to be something printed but not cut. And then I'm going to give it a fill, and the fill is white in this case. You could make it any sort of fun color you wanted. I make it white. If you want to make it transparent like this, where you've got the inside is sort of like a lighter shader of the outside, you can come over here and just make it manually a different shade. But the best way I find to do it is to give it a white fill and then just increase the transparency here. So it means you can make a little transparent box on the outside. The reason I like this is because if you click away and then click back in just on the purple, you can change this easily to make it blue, to make it pink, to make it green, and that inside box still just stays the same color as the outside, just a lighter shade of it. So that's that type of basic label. Once you've got this shape created, we're actually going to zoom in on it. So press the Z key or the Z key and zoom in. You could also take this box that you've created and make it smaller. So give a little square at the front as a little icon. You could also maybe remove that shape, delete it. You could make a little circle. So again, we're going to click on the circle tool, one click and then one click on the circle, holding down the shift key. We're going to get a circle here. Again, click the V key, gives us back our selection tool. We're going to maybe make this, again, we're going to make it transparent. But this time we're going to actually want to give it an outline. Maybe I want this to be a little checkbox. So I actually do want to give it an outline this time, but I don't want it to be red because that will cut. So what I'm going to do is give it any other color. So maybe we'll do a dark pink, just to sort of contrast. And then I'm going to go into the line style, this one here, the line style tab. And we want to make it a bit thicker because obviously this isn't going to print very clearly because we can't really see it. So, oh, that's a bit too thick. We can just drag this scale down until it's about where we want it. That looks really cute. The other thing you can do is you can manually sort of line this up. I find that really hard. So you can click and drag and select all. Come to your align tool and align to center this way, and it will align this checkbox. So you can then play around with all sorts of shapes and all sorts of transparencies and all sorts of styles of boxes to make any kind of label you want. So that's that one. I might go over the flag just really quickly. It's basically the same. Let me just zoom in again. So hit the Z key and zoom in. So we're going to make a rectangle, roughly the size that we want it. We're going to go select it and go up to the transform tool. We're going to make it 3.8 centimeters wide and 1 centimeter tall, and apply. This is the exact size of the sticker that we want, but we actually want it flag shaped. So my trick for making a flag is to grab the line and place a line holding the shift key all the way through the center of your shape. Then we're going to use the select tool to select both of our shapes and align to the center. Now we know that our center of the flag, this little like inset bit of the flag, we know we want it to be on that line. So now all you do is click on your rectangle, and we are actually going to use the edit points tool. And you'll see that these 4 points of our shape have come up. So now what we want to do is we want to click in the middle here and drag out. You just used a line as a reference. You could make a really weirdly long flag. You could make a little teeny tiny flag. I like to sort of keep them about 45-degree angle sort of thing. And we're just going to use the line to manually line up our flag like that. Click, you can get it kind of close, but you just either shape the width we want. We want it 3.8 centimeters wide. So we're going to go to the offset tool. We're going to offset the shape, 0.08, and we're going to click apply. And then you can either go into the line tool and make the outside transparent again, and then go into the color tool and change the color. What I like to use is the eyedropper tool. So if you're selected a shape and you hold the control button down on your keyboard, you'll see you get this little eyedropper tool. So you hit the control button and then you can click another shape and it will take the characteristics of that shape, including the line color and the fill color. So I often do this just as a single step to get a basic fill, and then I can change the color and I don't have to worry about manually changing the line color to transparent. So you can, again, make any kind of shape you want with using those shape tools and just variations of them. I'll also go over the script sticker now because I definitely have requests to go over how to make a script sticker. So we're going to use a couple of tools here, some that we've already used, the offset tool in particular, and we're going to use the font tool. So over here you can click the text button, click anywhere on your screen and you get this big cursor pop up, and we're going to make a sticker that says maybe Happy Mail. So just type out the word you want, and then we're going to have it selected, and we're going to go across here into our font text style, and we're going to select a font we like. Sometimes it's kind of hard to see with the red outline how your font is going to look once it's filled in. So I'm actually going to fill it in with black first. And again, I don't want these letters to individually cut, so I'm going to give them a transparent outline. Then we go back to our text style, and this is kind of cute, but maybe I want something a little bit more scripty. I've got a whole lot of fonts installed. I don't really like that. No. Where's just something cute and scripty? That'll do. So that's a nice little sort of handwritten kind of looking font. So what we want the sticker to cut around the outside of these letters in like a little bubble. We don't want the individual letters to cut out because A, they would be tiny, and B, they would be really hard to pull up off your sticker sheet. So text is its own vector. It does have cut lines around the outside of the shape. So if we did make the outline of these letters red, they would cut. So we want to make sure that it is set to transparent. And while it's still a text box, we can still change this text. Mail from... So we can still change the text. Even once we've changed the color and the font and everything, we can still change the text. What we're going to do now, though, is we're going to right-click on the text and we're going to click Ungroup. This makes it not a text box anymore, so I can't go back in here and I can't change the text, and I can't edit the font. So it's set as is, like this. I can do other things with it. So I can select it all and I can group it back together. Ctrl G will group together, or you can right-click and click Group. And now we've got our text. Maybe we want to make it, again, we want to make it about 3.6 centimeters wide because it's going to go, oh, so that's a good example. So here in your dimensions box, you have a width and a height, and you have this little lock box. So this is lock aspect ratio. So if you set 3.8 centimeters wide and you just click apply, with this unchecked, it's going to make it skinnier, but it's going to keep the height exactly the same. So we actually don't want that. So we're going to undo it and click back into it. And we're going to lock it. So that means that when we type this in 3.8, it will make the height scaled down the same as the width. And so we actually want it a little bit smaller than that, because once we add an offset, we still want it to fit within our box in our planner. So then we're going to go to the offset tool. If we do an offset that's 0.8 centimeters wide, 0.8 centimeters, and we make it rounded edges, you can see that it's going to cut like this. So it's going to cut in two separate words because these aren't connected. I'm just going to zoom in a little closer so we can see. It's also going to cut inside of this P, both P's. It's going to cut a little extra strip inside this M, and it's going to try and get in here, but struggle. It might also struggle cutting in here because this is quite a tight space on quite a small sticker. So I'm actually going to delete that offset because that's not quite what we wanted. So now that we've got this font not as a font anymore, we've made them shapes, we can actually ungroup it again. And I'm going to slide my mail just using the arrow keys. With it selected, I'm just going to slide it a little closer to the word happy. If you hold the shift key down, it will do a little jump in bigger increments. So I'm going to pull it right up really close. It still is easily distinguished as two words, but they're going to cut as one now. So I'm going to select them all again and group them together. And then I'm going to do an offset. This time I'm going to make it a little bigger because I didn't want it to So maybe I'll do a point. That's huge. 1, 2. And then we'll just hit Y. Better. So we don't have any. I'm going to take this piece out. So we don't have any circles in our P's, which is nice. And we've got this sort of nice bubbly outside. The silhouette is going to be fine cutting this. It's not going to have any trouble getting into any small spaces. And it looks really nice. If I wanted to make it a little bit smaller, I think I probably could. So I'm going to delete it. Select my words again. Offset. And maybe I'll just do a 1.1 offset. Okay, that looks good. It looks better around the edges to me. It's a little bit less white space, but it's still nice and flowy. But we do have this extra little bit that's cut here. Now you can have that cut out, but really I don't think it's all that useful to have that little tiny strip. It's just going to give you issues, I think, on your machine. So what I do is I select just the offset and right click and release compound path. And this makes this little shape into a separate shape. So now what you can do is just click on it and delete it. And it's that simple. And now you've got this really nice clean outline all the way around the edges of your letters. I'm going to also give a little example of a different type of font. And you can, so actually I'll do a full example here with 2 different fonts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this down. So to duplicate an object, you can just hold the control key and press any arrow. So duplicate down, you can duplicate to the right, and duplicate up. So the other way to do that, if you can't find the duplicate tool, it's here under the replicate panel. And you can replicate up or across using this tool. I like the arrow keys. I think the arrow keys are really easy. So control and an arrow key. So both of these we're going to make into black letters with no outline. But this time we're going to make one of them into like a chunky script and one of them into a really fancy like flowy script. As you can see, I have a lot of fonts. I've been meaning to go through them for a long time to make it sort of easier to find fonts and shapes, but I'm looking for one that's nice and curly, so I can give you this one will do. Okay. So what we're going to do is we actually only want one of each word, obviously, so we're going to click on both of them and Control Shift G to ungroup. Then we maybe just want, I usually write the whole word out in both fonts so I can see whether I want to put this sort of script with the word day or whether I want to do laundry and then day underneath. So I think I'm going to do this combination. I think it's going to look better. So click and drag to select. We're going to zoom in. In this case, I want to group laundry all together and I want to group the word day all together. So select all the letters, Control and G to group together. And then I'm going to make this smaller and just sort of pop it in under here. Maybe make it a little bit smaller again. Okay, so I think that's pretty cute. Maybe I would make the different fonts different colors, or I can leave it just black like that, but it's kind of cool. It's got a like quirky little look to it, and it's got the 2 different fonts, which is sort of a bit more interesting than having one font sometimes. So what we're going to do now is we're going to group these together and we're going to give it an offset, just like we did before. So offset. Okay, so I'm going to want to make the offset a bit smaller, maybe 1.5, and we're going to click apply. Now as you can see, we've got these 2 extra shapes in the middle, just like we had before with the words Happy Mail. So what you can do is right click and release compound path. We've got those 2 shapes. You can just select off of the shape and click on both and delete them. That works fine. But sometimes you'll end up with dozens of little tiny circles within your word. So then I find the easiest option is to ungroup and you'll be selecting, release compound path, and you'll have all 3 shapes selected. Hold the shift key and click on the outside line, because the outside line is the one we want to keep. So click on that and then click delete. And you'll be left with just the outside. Even if you've got hundreds of little circles in here that you want to delete, if you select them all, shift and then click on the outside line, you'll end up with just this, and then we can group that together. We can also now change the size of this as one shape. The offset will become sort of smaller and larger, but it will become smaller and larger relative to the words. So I find as long as I've made the sticker roughly the right size that I want, then the offset seems to be about right. Just trying to make sure that no one's posting in the live chat or anything. Let's see. All good. Yeah, so feel free to ask questions if I'm going too fast or I'm going over anything too quickly or something doesn't make sense. Feel free to let me know. So now page. The next one we're going to make is the checklist. I think the checklist is the most complex to make from scratch, but once you've made it, you never have to make it again. You can always just copy and paste from, like you make one, and then if I want to make a new sticker kit, I'll just copy from this document into a new document and I don't have to make it again. I can just adjust the colors. So again, I'm going to zoom in a little bit just so it's easier to see. I'm going to again start with the exact shape that we want to cut. So this is our rectangle. Hit the V key, select your shape. In the transform tool, we're going to go 3.8 centimeters wide and 4.8 centimeters tall. And we're going to click apply or hit the enter key. Now this is our exact size that we want our checklist box to be. If you wanted to make a checklist that was 5 by 5 centimeters, you can do that too. This process works the same regardless of the size of the sticker. This just happens to be the size of the old Erin Condren boxes, so it's the size that most sticker shops make their checklists. Okay, so we've got our shape. What we want to do is we want to give it an offset. Surprise, surprise, we offset everything. I'm going to do 0.8, that's what I do for my shop. I find it works really well. If my stickers are cut too much further out than that, then they look like they're cut wrong anyway. The sort of edges won't be evenly spaced, so it doesn't matter if there's white. I wouldn't sell them like that anyway. So I find 0.8 gives me a little bit of wiggle room, but if they cut further off than that, then I don't sell them anyway. So, sorry, I did it on autopilot. Hit the control key with this outside shape selected and click on the color that you want to copy from. So we made this before, it's just a shape with no outline. So we're going to click on control and then click, and it copies over the characteristics of this shape into this shape. Now we've got two options here. We can do an ombre or we can do alternating lines, and they're done the same way. So we're going to zoom in even further. What we actually want to do is create separate boxes that sit on top of this. We want to make sure they're spaced out nice and evenly. So what we're going to do is we know that this box is 4.8 centimeters tall, and I want to make 6 spots. So 4.8 centimeters tall divided by 6 gives us 0.8. So each of these rectangles is going to be 0.8 centimeters tall. If I wanted to do 5, I'll just divide by 5, and each rectangle would be 0.96 centimeters tall. If I wanted to do 7, each rectangle would be 0.685, would be close enough. So what we're actually going to do, let's do this actually, it's a little bit harder, so let's do this. So we want each of our rectangles to be 0.685 centimeters tall. So again, we're going to make another rectangle, select the shape, go into our scale tool, and we're going to make it 0.685 centimeters tall. And click apply. We want it to be the width of the offset because we actually want this color transparency to go all the way to the edge. So we want it to be 3.96 centimeters wide. And then we're going to put it on top of our shape and we're going to give it no outline because again we don't want it to cut, we just want it to be visible when we print. And then we're going to give it a fill and we're going to fill it in with white. And let's actually just fill it in with like a bright color so we can see what we're working with at the moment. So what I want to do with the shape is I want to take it and I want to align it to the top of the cut line. So we're going to select our two shapes, hit the shift key and click on the color. And we want to align it to the top. Oops. We want to have our purple box selected as well. So click align to top. So now our box is nice and aligned and we're going to select everything and align to center. Then we're going to click on our box again and we're going to hold down the control key and we're going to tap the down arrow and we're going to make 7 copies of this shape. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now we've got all these rectangles. We're actually going to delete the top rectangle. We don't want that one there because that's just our base color in both of the shapes. And our bottom rectangle, we're actually going to make a tiny bit taller because we want it to cover all of this offset. Just like that. Now what we want to do is we want to make these varying levels of transparent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it white. And for this top one, maybe I'll make it 90% transparent. So if you type in the number, you can then hit enter and it will make it that level of transparency. That doesn't look transparent enough, so I'm going to make it 85%. That looks a bit better. These other shapes, I'm actually going to select them all, holding the shift key and clicking, and then hit the control key, and we're going to duplicate the attributes of this rectangle. So now we've got all of these rectangles filled in. So I'm just going to click on each one going down and change their transparency. So 75, 65, 45, 50, skip on 55, 45, and 35. So these are just percentages of transparency. So now we've got this nice box that has all these levels of transparency going up. So we've got an ombre. The cool thing about this is that you can select the top rectangle, which is actually the full box sitting behind, and you can change the color to any color, and all of those transparencies will still just sit on top and be varying levels of transparent. The other thing you can do, like I've done over here, is actually, so maybe instead of doing transparent boxes, what we want to do is we want to copy and paste this. We want a different version of it. So maybe on this one instead, we actually want to do like this. We want to do alternating colors. So we can hold down the shift key and select the alternating rectangles. And maybe these we just want to fill in bright pink. And these other ones we want to fill, we actually just want to delete those because we want them to be the background color. So now we've got the background color with perfectly spaced apart rectangles. And again, I don't really like those dark colors. So maybe I want to make these a different color. Oops. If something happens unexpected, I just usually use the undo key and undo a couple of times. So we can do it like that. So we'll start with circles. So I'm just going to delete this. What you can do is just line them up by yourself manually, but Silhouette has on the square, and we're going to, we're going to go across. We're going to go across to the circle or the ellipse tool. We're going to hold the shift key down so we get a circle and not an ellipse, and we're going to make a checklist. So check box, roughly the size we want it. In this case, I'm going to do what I did up here. I'm going to make it white in its fill color because I want a little white checklist. And I want an outline on this one. So you could just turn the outline off. Give it a transparent outline, that would just be a regular circle. But in this case, I want to make it a cool sort of purple color so that it matches with the background of my checklist. And I want to make it a little bit thicker than that so that it looks more obvious. Great. So then what I want to do is I want to make sure that these are aligned within the shape. So what I can do is click on this rectangle and click on my circle. Now I can't do that for this top line because obviously there's actually no rectangle here. So what I'm going to do is click on the circle and click on Shift and click down onto this rectangle and align to bottom and then align to center. And then I'm going to click back on my circle, Control and down arrow. And I'm going to do this all the way down. Control down, duplicate. So sorry, I'll do it slowly. Shift key to unselect the rectangle. Control key and down arrow to duplicate the circle. Shift key to select the next rectangle. Align to bottom and align to center to make the circle centered. Shift, Control, Shift, align. So we've got 5. Now you notice I haven't done the top one because I've got nothing to align it with. There's no rectangle up there. And I haven't done the bottom one. And the reason for that is that the bottom rectangle is larger than all the other rectangles. So if I do the same thing and I duplicate down and I align to center, you'll notice that it's aligned center to the rectangle, but actually our cut line is smaller than that. So the spacing between the cut line and the circle and the next line is actually off, and you can see it sort of looks a bit, it's just not aligned. So I don't like doing that. So what I want to do is I want to actually keep the alignment the same as all these others. So what I can do is I can hold the circle and Shift click the rectangle. This time I'm going to duplicate both of them up. So Control key and duplicate both up. And then I'm just going to click off, select the rectangle and delete it. So now our circle is in exactly the right place because when shapes duplicate up, they duplicate exactly on this line. So if I duplicate to the right, it duplicates exactly on this line. And if I duplicate down, it's exactly on this line. So I'm going to do that again with this bottom shape. Click the circle and click the rectangle. Control key and duplicate down. I don't want this extra rectangle because you can see it's duplicated the rectangle as well. So I'm going to click delete. So now I've got 7 circles, all perfectly aligned and all perfectly spaced. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to select, click and drag, and I'm going to select everything except the circles. So Control and group together. So now I've got a box and all these separate circles. I'm going to do that. Now I'm going to click and drag and select everything except including the circles. I'm going to hold the Shift key down and select the box and group together. So now I've got a box background and a circle background. So we want that because it makes it easier to change colors later. If I wanted to change the outline of all these circles all at once, maybe I decided actually that color is a bit too dark, I'm going to make it a little bit lighter, or I want a contrasting color, or maybe I want a black outline, we can do that. So that's making a checklist. The really cool thing about doing a checklist in this sort of way with shapes like this is that we can ungroup this. We can select our red line, and I'm actually just going to bring the red line to the front. So using our bring to front tool that we talked about earlier. And we can just slide this across. And we can do the same on this side. We can group all of these together, all of our rectangles, and we can slide these across. And I would just select everything then, and I would just align to center because we've done a sort of eyeball of this cut line, the outside cut line. So align to center, just make sure everything's perfectly centered. And now we have a skinny checklist. So that was really easy to do. And it's just a modification of something that we've already created. So that's with a circle. Circle's really easy because it's a shape that's within the Silhouette Studio to make. Let's say we wanted a heart checklist, which is really popular in the planning community. So I'm just going to take this. So we want to make a heart shape. So to make a heart shape, for example, I've downloaded this image. I downloaded it from a website called FreePic, which gives you free images that you can use for creating stickers. You can always just grab an image from Google. Be aware that if you grab an image from Google, you can't sell it because it's someone else's image. So make sure you're giving correct copyright attributes where necessary. So for example, I just grabbed this image from FreePic because I know it allows me to sell with as long as I attribute the artist, but make sure you're always reading the fine print. If you're just making it for yourself, just grab a heart image from Google. It doesn't really matter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this shape and I'm going to drag it. I think with the live stream program, it's live streaming possible. It's making the Silhouette Studio a little bit slower than normal, so actually a minute because it sometimes does that. Okay, so it's loaded fine. Okay, so it's loaded fine. Just going to try that again. Cool. So click and drag. I keep a folder for this live stream, and you just click and drag onto the page. Be careful not to click and drag onto a shape, because if you do that, it's going to try and fill in the shape with your image, and you don't really want that because this is not. It's tried to put the heart inside the flag, and as you can see, it's only given you like half of the heart. So you want to make sure that you drag it to a blank canvas. Now, like we said before, we can't change the color of this heart. So we could just make it smaller, and we could just put it on our checklist, and that would be great. We would end up with a little black heart for checklists. But I want to make it so that we can change the color of the checklist really easily. So I'm going to copy this across. But you notice I didn't select the circles there, so now I've just got this blank checklist here. But what I want to do is I want to make a heart that I can change the color of. So what I'm going to use is the trace tool. So the trace tool will mean that we can get an outline, and we can tell Silhouette where we want the outline to be, and it will mean that we can change the color of it. So select trace area and select the whole heart. This is much easier with a black image. It's a lot harder to do with something that's like sketchy or like a sort of scribbly look, but it can be done. So all you want to do is take the scale down to 4. I think it's the lowest it goes. Mine's never gone lower than that. I have no idea why that is. And I'm going to increase the threshold just up a little bit. And what we want to do is make sure this yellow area has covered the entire of your heart. And we want to make sure that it's not gone outside the heart too much, and that it's a relatively smooth outside layer. And then we're going to click trace. If you click trace outside edge, you just get this outside line. But we want to trace, actually, no, we're going to trace outer edge. Because what we actually want is an outline. We don't want the full shape. So we've got this heart now as a full outline. So I just clicked and dragged our image away. We actually don't want this anymore. Now I've got an outline. Just like when we had a circle, when we made our checklist, we just had an outline, and we made this shape. Now we're going to do the same with our heart. So all you have to do is go and fill it in with white again. And we're going to give it a line color and a line thickness. And we can make it smaller. They always look cute when they're smaller. And we're going to zoom in. And we're going to do the same thing we did before. Because we've already done some aligning, all we're going to do here is we're going to align to the top of this shape. And then what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate it down 7 times. 1, 2, or 6 times. 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're going to shift and we're going to click on this again, and we're going to align to the bottom of it because we know we've already aligned this shape correctly. Now we want to select, so we're going to group together the outside so that we can easily unselect it. And we're going to select all the hearts, click on the center we want to make sure the background is one group. It makes it easier to unselect. we're going to select everything, and then we're going to unselect by holding the Shift key. We're going to unselect the background. And now we're going to use the spacing tool. We're going to space vertically because we already know exactly that this top is lined up correctly and the bottom is lined up correctly. So we're just going to space vertically and it will space them out perfectly. So now we've got hearts. And again, we can select everything, hold Shift to unselect the background, and then we're going to fill in with our color. One of the things I love doing is using the eyedropper tool to select the color here. So if we hold, if we select just our heart, and we hold the Control key and we click, we take all the attributes from that shape. So as you can see, they've all filled in with the same as this background, which is a fill of purple and no outline. What we actually want to do is we just want to take this color. So if you're in the color tool and you click on this eyedropper and you click on a shape, it will select just that color to fill in. But you notice we've left the outline. So we don't actually want that either. What we want to do is go into the line tool, line color, and select the eyedropper tool. And we want to make it purple because I think then it blends nicely in with the color we've already selected. I'm actually going to go to options. I'm going to make it this L. I think it stands for lightness. Don't know. But if you make this smaller, this number smaller, it will be a darker color. So I'm going to make it maybe 70. And you can see it's just darkened up, but it's exactly the same color family. So maybe I'll make it a little bit lighter. And it just makes it blend in nicely. Because if you choose a different type of purple, it sometimes looks a bit odd because it's a warmer or cooler color. So I like to select the color I've already used and then just change the lightness. So we've made our various checklists. What I like to do if I'm making a sticker sheet, especially for sale, is I want it to look nice. So what I do is, let's use this. And we're going to group it all together. So it's one shape. And then you can control and again. And we're going to select all these shapes. And we're going to ungroup them. Because now we can access this back rectangle. Because the back rectangle is the one that we're going to change the color of to give our checklist different colors. And I'm in the line tool panel, which I don't want to be. I want to be in the color tool panel. So we're going with purple. Maybe we'll make this one blue. And maybe we'll make this one like an aqua green. Awesome. Now we can select our circles, which we have grouped together. If I'm not mistaken. Which means we can now change the line color really easily. So that's line color. So in this case, I want to make it this color, but a little bit darker, just so that you can see it on that top rectangle. Sorry, it's going a bit slow. Advanced options, and I like to make it a little bit darker. And again, this is all just sort of personal preference. If you want to make all of your stickers clashing colors and you want to make them whatever colors you like, it's all just a personal preference thing. So you can click on this one and we'll make it again this blue color and a little bit darker. This one will make this green color. Cool. Now we've got these all four. I'm going to select all of them and I'm going to just control and duplicate down. And now you've got all 8 of your checklists that you would need for for example, a Erin Condren sticker kit. Then when you go to cut this page, I actually don't have my registration marks on, which I should have done at the beginning, but you would go to send, and now you can see it's selected all of the shapes that have outline colors. So we actually don't want that, so unselect everything, and you just have this red line ready to cut. So you're just going to end up with a page of stickers with only 8 boxes cut out. We don't want any of the circles cut out, just the boxes. You could then do the same thing. That's why I like creating these shapes from scratch in Silhouette Studio, because they become really easy to adjust. So for example, if we wanted to duplicate this shape across, we're just going to select the shape, make 8 copies of it. We can zoom in. Now that we've already adjusted the colors of these and we know that we have the circles and the outline colors we want, we can ungroup our checklist down the bottom here. We can select, using the control key, we can select 2 checklists, control and then click, 2 checklists, control and click, 2 checklists, control and click, and we've duplicated the colors. And because our checklists again are grouped together, we can control and click, and it will take the color and the outline style of those shapes, and we can control and click, control and click, and control and click. So it's really easy to select and change the colors in kits. So what I have for my kits is a sticker sheet that looks like this. It's got my branding on it, and it's got a cut outline for the outside of the sheet, but it just has stickers like this exactly set up in this way. And then whenever I pull in a new pattern, so for example, say I'm making a sticker sheet from these patterns. These are really fun patterns, so what I can do is I can click and drag this, which is also a PNG, onto my screen. And I could then take these 2 purple checklists, and then I'm going to use the eyedropper tool. And I want to get this color, maybe a dark sort of bluey color. Select these 2, and maybe I want to take an orange color. Select the 2, and I'll grab a nice green color. And then I would select these 2, and I'll grab another sort of darker blue, or whatever. So that's how I would make checklists, and that's how I would make them for my kit, which makes it really easy to just use the eyedropper tool and grab colors that I want to use. The other thing I want to talk about briefly is patterns and how to use patterns. So I'm just going to move these again off the screen. I'm just going to group them together so that they're easier to move and I don't accidentally pull circles out of them or whatever. So that's off the screen there. So I want to briefly talk about patterns and how to make a patterned half box. So these are the 2 shapes we're going to make, and we're going to zoom in just while we make them. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a rounded rectangle, and we're going to click and drag just like we used to do. Now it's made it purple. We don't actually want it to be purple because it's going to be the cut line for our shape. We actually want to make it red. So we're going to go up here. Sorry, my program's slow today. sometimes I find with the Silhouette software, you just have to wait a second and don't click anything and it will sort itself out. So now it's a red outline, so we're going to be able to cut that really easily at the end. We're going to go again to our sizing tool. We're going to make it 3.8 centimeters wide, and we're going to make it 2.4 centimeters tall because that's the size of a half box in the Conjuring. And we've got this, because it's a rounded rectangle, we have these two little red dots. And these red dots mean we can adjust the corners. We can adjust just the outside corner. We can adjust the top corner. We can adjust it however we like. The trick here is that if you press the Shift key, the two will adjust the same rate. And I like that because it gives you these nice, equally rounded rectangles. So we can make this fun shape that's sort of like a, I don't know, pill shaped. Or we could make it almost a rectangle with really softly rounded edges. So I like my edges to be sort of medium rounded. And then again, we're going to do an offset the same way we do for any other shape. 0.08 centimeters offset. Apply. We're going to use the Control key to grab the color that we've been using. So we're going to maybe grab this yellow color. Now, we want this internal shape. If you do an internal offset, the same way we did for the other shape, you'll notice that its corners are sort of less rounded than these sort of quite tightly rounded edges. And I don't really like the look. It doesn't quite look like, to me, it doesn't quite look like they line up properly. So what I prefer to do is do a little offset, and I can see the offset is 3.4 centimeters wide and 2 centimeters tall. I'm actually going to delete it, and I'm going to create a rounded rectangle using the tool. Select our new rectangle, and I'm going to make it, what do we say, 3.4 centimeters wide and 2 centimeters tall. Now I'm going to select all of it and center them. And now we've got an internal offset that we've made manually, but it's adjustable in its edges. So again, I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and I'm just going to give it a nice rounded shape in the middle here. And then I'm going to fill this in again with white and increase the transparency on it and give it a transparent outside. So I think these look a little too rounded. I'm going to make them a little less rounded. Perfect. Now I can duplicate this and I can make it any color I like, just like we did before. So you'll see a lot of these steps are the same. So once you've sort of mastered using a shape, changing its size, giving it an offset, filling back in the offset, and then adjusting the front of it, you can really make a whole lot of rectangles, a whole lot of shapes really easily, the exact same way. So another thing to note is that if you have a grouped object and you try and take a color, it will fill all the objects within that group the same color. So if I do want to change the color of this, I have to ungroup it, Control-Shift-G, and then click on the blue, and then Control and click to take the color. I'm also going to do a quick chat about patterns. So this is some patterns that I bought and downloaded. I bought them from the Hungry JPEG. The website, it has bundles. I bought these as a bundle ages ago. Never got around to using them. So there's a couple of ways you can use patterns. If you have an advanced version of Silhouette, like I do, you can add them to your patterns folder. I'm not going to do that now because I know a lot of people have the basic version. So both of these techniques will work in the basic version of Silhouette. So I'm going to click on my pattern, and I'm going to just drag it, and I'm going to drag it into the color on the outside. So you notice that if I go onto the inside here, it's filled in the red cut line, but I actually want to go onto the outside and fill in the background of our shape. And now it's filled in with pattern. I can do the same for this one. Click and drag, and then click and drag. So now we've got our shapes filled in with our pattern. We can go up now to the Fill Color tool, click on the pattern button, and even though it hasn't come up as a fill pattern in our scrolling option, again this is only an option for Advanced Silhouette Business and I think Designer Edition, what you can do is it already thinks that this fill is a pattern. It knows that you've put a picture in there. So now you can do things to that picture. So we're going to go to the Advanced Options panel. Please load for me. And you can do a whole lot of stuff. You can flip the pattern sideways. You can rotate the pattern a little bit or a lot. But we're still cutting off this flower, so we're going to pattern button. Again, sometimes Silhouette Studio is just a bit glitchy. Click the pan pattern button if it worked, and you'll notice this little black circle has popped up, and now you can click and you can actually drag that pattern around within your shape. So maybe I want just sort of this big blue flower on the edge here. So that's that pattern. Maybe this one I want to do just a little bit bigger, but I don't want to do a specific flower. So again, just click on that outside color that we've already filled in with a picture. And we want to make it a little bit bigger. Actually, it's perfectly, and it means you can make them bigger and smaller without ending up with weird lines in your pattern. And you could use the pan tool and sort of scroll around and take that bit of the pattern. But maybe I know exactly which bit of the pattern I want to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my picture and drag it in. But this time it's come up full size because I haven't dragged it into a shape, I've just dragged the pattern. But maybe I know I want this bit of the flower. So what I'm going to do is make my pattern smaller, and I'm going to put it on top of my half box. And again, I'm going to zoom in with the Z key. And I know I want this bit of the flower showing, and maybe I like this brown flower here. So I'm just going to line them up sort of roughly, as long as the pattern overlaps the box, we're okay. And I'm going to send the pattern to the back. And now with the pattern selected, I'm going to shift and I'm going to click on our outside layer, the color layer. And I'm going to come over here to our modify tool and I'm going to click crop. And what it's going to do is it's going to take the front, in this case it's this layer that's our color layer, and it's going to take the front layer away from the back layer. So we're going to be just left with the front, the bit of the pattern we wanted. So I'm actually going to show you that again, because I know that wasn't very clear. So this layer is our fill color layer, and it's going to use the outside edge of this, and it's going to like hole punch almost. It's going to take a punch from the back layer. So when we click crop, it's taking a punch of that back layer and using that as the picture. So that's the two ways you can use patterns. You can click and drag them in and use them as patterns, or you can crop them using the colored square that you've made as your shape. So I think we're going to leave it there for today. If you have any questions, I'm going to put this up as a stream on my channel. It'll be the full, I don't know, hour and a half or whatever I've done here. I know this is a little bit rambly, but it's just kind of me talking through how I make things rather than a really specific tutorial. So if you would like specific tutorials about something, please just let me know. If you found this useful, I'd love it if you gave me a comment or even subscribe to my channel, or I don't know, any of the other options there. I do have a sticker shop, so if you wanted to go and check that out, it would be much appreciated. I do sell stickers, I sell a few printables, and yeah, I've been doing that for 5 years or so now, almost. I think I'm coming up for my 5-year anniversary in June, so that's really exciting. But yeah, so the link to my shop is in the description. If you want to check that out and support me that way, that'd be awesome. I'll also have my Instagram and my Facebook group in the in the description box if you want to head over there. But yeah, if you found it useful, please do let me know. I've got a lot of spare time at the moment, like a lot of us do, I think. So if you want to ask any further questions, I'm happy to do another live, or I'm happy to do a Zoom with a few people. Maybe if we've got a specific group of people that have a specific question, I'd be happy to do sort of a Zoom chat and talk people through it. Just, yeah, let me know. I've got spare time and I'm pretty good with the Silhouette program. So let me know what you'd like to see. And until then, I'll see you next time. Now I've got to work out how to exit the live stream because this is my first live stream. So let's see if I know how to do this. All right. Enjoy your day, everyone. Try not to get stir crazy by being cooped up. But yeah, enjoy your day, everyone. Bye.